Carnage? That's not the Carnage we're supposed to be talking about. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here to talk about Carnage. No, not the Twitch streamer who was in the intro over there. He is one of the reasons I got into content creation, so I wanted to give him a bit of a shout out, so I'll link to his channel down below. Go check him out. He's a cool dude. Today, we're talking about the mythical Carnage. This is the dude that you can win by going through Curse City hard. And as you'll see here, I don't have this anymore. I don't have the progress towards him because I got him this CVC. We are talking 12 rotations it took me to get Carnage. Maybe I could have gotten him a little earlier if I pushed a little bit harder. Some people have certainly got him earlier. My alt, on the other hand, is about halfway to 2/3 of the way there, so probably another 10 to 12 rotations, so maybe another 6 months to a year. But eventually, you will get this dude if you're working on Curse City hard, especially if you're making serious progress. You too can have yourself a Carnage. He's a mythical champion. He definitely looks pretty interesting. I've been having some fun with him so far, so I figured I would do a guide on him, and you guys can all take a look and see what he does, ways that you might be able to use him on your account, and whether or not he's worth investing in. So Carnage is an attack-based mythical in the Demon Spawn. He is Spirit Affinity, and he looks pretty awesome here. You like the wings, just like his overall vibe. We can certainly go over here to take a look at him here. He's got more of the Burning Demon Spawn vibe, and the wings are open here. Again, he is pretty cool looking. Raid knocks it out in the art. And he's got a wonderful speed aura of 33% in Arena. So that makes him one of the best Arena auras around, possibly the best. But that is a very powerful aura because speed in Arena is so crucial. It's amazing. So we got him here on his first form. We'll take a look at his skills. He is a Nuker, and he's kind of a unique Nuker because we look here at his first skill, you'll see that his attack and accuracy based. Now, the way it actually works, if you check it out on hellhades.com, I can bring a link to that below. He has attack plus his accuracy is what he does his multipliers based off of. Now, you're not going to pile as much accuracy as you might attack when you're swapping it out. So doing some accuracy will certainly cut down on his attack a little bit, particularly for things like banners, because you just get less. Or if you get a flat attack stat on your banner, for example, versus accuracy, you're losing some. And of course, accuracy is a flat stat compared to attack, which is a percentage. You're going to get a lot more from the percentage, but even the base attack numbers are higher than what you're getting out of accuracy, because accuracy is in 10s, whereas the attack is going to be in 40s. You've got a little bit of damage reduction by building accuracy on him, but he does need accuracy for a lot of his skills. He's got some cool passives that play into that as well. So just keep that in mind when building him, and we'll certainly talk about that when we gear him, but I want to point that out before we go into the skills as well, because his damage is based on attack and accuracy, so accuracy plays a role in his damage, and while it's not as good as attack, it is still very good to build him with some accuracy if you can, and he gains a lot from that accuracy, as we'll see in a second form. On his first form here, he's got a attacks one enemy 2 times, 50% chance of removing one random buff from the target, so this can actually steal Stone Skin. I've had it do that before. When an enemy hits a champion or an ally, has a 50% chance of counterattacking with this skill. This chance increases by 10% for each debuff on the enemy. So one of the things that I found while using him, particularly in Arena, is that he'll just randomly go off on people as I'm getting attacked and counterattack with them and do a decent amount of damage. So it's one way he can pick away at the enemy. Plus, as he's stealing buffs, well, I guess he's removing them, not stealing them, he can kick these things off and can, strip them from some pretty valuable buffs, including Stone Skin sometimes. He ignores resistance on this as well, which is one of the nice things about him. You don't have to build him with an amazing amount of accuracy, but ignoring resistance gives you a decent chance of landing these things even with just a good amount of accuracy. His A2 here is attacks one enemy 2 times. Before attacking, HP swaps with an enemy, then steals all buffs from them, also transfers all debuffs from this champion to the target, and places a seal debuff on the target for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be removed. Now, seal is a really weird debuff. I'm not 100% sure I like it or not, but Seal goes on as a protected debuff, which I guess as a debuff is nice because he gets boosts for people having debuffs. What it does is it blocks gear set bonuses. So you get the stat bonuses out of gear sets no matter what. But if you're using, say, a reflex set, it'll stop the reflex from working. If you're using a savage set, it'll stop the savage part of it, where the ignore defense will no longer function. If you're using a merciless set, it'll stop the merciless from working with all of the abilities it has, other than the stat bonuses. Hey everyone, I just want to break in here for a quick correction because I realized I made a mistake in the video. Seal has two different versions, Seal and Master Seal. Regular Seal blocks gear set effects as well as Masteries. Does not block stat bonuses, but blocks everything else about Masteries. Master Seal also blocks blessing bonuses other than the stat boosts as well. So I think I mentioned in the video that Masteries was part of Master Seal. That is not correct. Masteries are part of regular Seal, which makes them much more valuable for regular Seal than I otherwise thought. So do keep that in mind when you deal with that. Back to the regular video. Seal can be useful, particularly in Arena where you're going to have nukers that are going to be in ignore defense gear. It's one way to shut down that ignore defense gear. There's also something called Master Seal, which is the level up of that I don't think anybody puts out. That Master Seal will actually also block Masteries from working as well. So it's interesting. It's probably not the most powerful debuff out there, but it has an interesting place. I wouldn't necessarily rely my strategy on using that, but it is definitely interesting. And again, he hits really, really hard with this. It's a single target attack, however. This debuff cannot be resisted or blocked if the target has 50% HP or less. And because he's swapping HP, if he takes a bunch of damage, you can then swap with somebody else, and then they'll have less HP. So you might even be able to kill them as well. And there's some fun stuff what happens when he kills people. Finally, his Trinity of Pain, 3-turn cooldown. Well, if it's booked, it's normally a 4-turn cooldown. Attacks one enemy 3 times. First hit places a block passive skills debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be removed, so it's a protected one. Second hit places block active skills. It cannot be removed, so it's also a protected debuff as well. Third hit steals 100% of the target's turn meter. They're 3 generally fairly good abilities, and he's hitting 3 times. He does a decent amount of damage with this one. His A2 is more of a nuke than this one, even with the triple hitter versus the double hitter, but he does a good amount of damage. His A4 here is the Metamorph. That's common with all of these mythicals. And finally, he has a passive. Each hit this champion deals from skills has a 50% chance of applying a debuff spread attack, taking one random debuff from the target and placing it on all enemies. Now, remember when we were talking about the seal? Well, this can randomly spread the seal. This can also randomly spread the block active skills or block passive skills, and those are protected, so they're not going to be able to be removed. Whenever this champion kills an enemy, has a 100% chance of applying debuff spread, taking all debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies, and this effect cannot be resisted. So yes, you do need some accuracy to land some of this, particularly the first one needs some accuracy, but some of the stuff can't be resisted. And since you need him to land some of these debuffs in the first place, you want him to land the debuffs, kill somebody, and then spread all these debuffs to everyone else. So he has a chance of taking a single target, annihilating them, and then placing block passive and block active skills on everybody else on the enemy team. That is pretty powerful. Now, it is still a single target attack. These debuffs are not going to be great versus bosses. In fact, I don't know if Master Seal actually can be used on bosses, and it honestly doesn't matter since regular Seal affects gear sets. Bosses don't have gear sets, so it really doesn't do much of anything. Now, this may be helpful for the new clan boss. I don't know. We'll have to see if block passive or block active skills actually helps them or anything. But this is a very cool ability with a very cool passive, making him interesting to use in Arena. But let's take a look at his second form here. So we get him to transform. He is still an attack champion here. His attack does go up when he transfers into this form. So he does a little more damage in this form. And this form's a little more AoE oriented. But both of these forms play well off of each other. So we've got his A1 here, which attacks one enemy 2 times, heals this champion by 20% of the damage inflicted. Whenever an enemy hits this champion or an ally has a 50% chance to counterattack with this skill. This chance is increased by 10% for each debuff on the enemy. So basically, in either form, he is constantly counterattacking. Now, it's interesting that he will counterattack on a counterattack with this as well, because it is whenever an enemy hits this champion or ally. So I've seen some kind of interesting and nutty combinations happen with this champion. So very interesting. It is an RNG chance of some kind, but this is still kind of a cool passive effect that he's got on this A1. A2 attacks all enemies, ignores shield buffs, ignore ally protection if the enemies are under 1 or more debuffs, and ignores unkillable if enemies are under 2 or more debuffs. So very debuff reliant here, but ignoring shields, very good. Ignoring ally protection, very good. Ignoring unkillable is great if you can get the debuffs. It's a little bit of a shame that these are so locked behind how many debuffs you have, but that just means you need to either focus on those for the team or you're just building this to do damage. Finally, his A3 here attacks all enemies 2 times. If a target is killed by this skill while under 3 or more debuffs, it places a block revive. Again, very powerful, but you need 3 or more debuffs. Also heals this champion by 30% of the damage dealt. So he heals from this. This does the block revive. This absolutely nukes people. It does a ton of damage. It's pretty amazing. He's got his change back to his base form here, and then he's finally got this passive. And this is where I mentioned that accuracy helps a ton. Now, keep in mind, he's getting accuracy damage here as well, but this champion's crit damage is increased by 1% for every 3 points of accuracy they have. So that means he gets an additional 100 crit damage for 300 accuracy, which is really kind of the minimum accuracy I'd recommend building him with. That is huge. On top of that, he ignores 10% of target's defense for each debuff they are under. So he ignores defense more than other champions do if they have debuffs. Now, it's kind of a shame that Sheep really is a big deal in Arena, although it's certainly becoming a little bit less so. But because of Sheep, that makes him a little bit harder to use, because debuff landing isn't always the greatest strategy against Sheep teams. But for non-Sheep teams, this should be great. He's got the wonderful aura, and honestly, the other place to look at it for him, and we're going to test him out in Hydra, is he is going to deal a ton of damage in Hydra, because he's going to have not only this extra crit damage because of the passive, but he's going to have all these extra buffs, because Hydra tends to be a debuff-heavy boss, so you're going to have a lot of extra debuffs, which means he's going to be ignoring more and more damage. And the closer you can get to true damage for a champion, the more damage they will do, because defense just reduces the amount of damage, and it actually starts off at a fairly decent reduction and goes down from there. So if he's ignoring 70, 80, 90% of defense, he's going to be doing almost true damage with the extra crit damage and damage based off of his accuracy. And of course, if he's got increased attack as well, this actually makes increased accuracy a damage dealing ability for him as well. So he could be a lot of fun in Hydra. So we'll test him out there. I'm going to try him as some wave clear in dungeons. I want to see if he can actually replace a seer. I think that that's a good place to use him. Obviously, if you need to just deal some pure damage, there's certainly plenty of places you can use him for pure damage as well. But I think trying to see if we can replace him with a seer in a team in dungeons would be great. And we're going to test him out in Arena. But first of all, how have I got mine built? I tried really hard to get him in Stone Skin plus a set that ignores defense, because I think that's probably his best build for high-end Arena. The Stone Skin means he can last a while, it means he'll get a chance to do multiple counterattacks, and it means he can at least get to the fact where he at least gets 1 turn, and if he gets 1 turn, there's a good chance he'll kill several of the other team, and then you're in good shape. I couldn't do that, so instead I went with a fairly fast build, and I ended up in 6-piece Merciless because I was able to do that, and that gives me a lot of additional bonuses as well. So I've got the 35% ignore defense here, which is great because he'll also have additional ignore defense from his passive if there's any other debuffs on those champions as well. So we're talking 45, 55, 65% ignore defense. He's also got Helm Smasher, which we'll talk about when we talk about the Masteries later. Stacking that ignore defense can be huge for doing damage in all kinds of areas in the game, specifically really good in Arena and for the higher end wave clear and such like that. And then, of course, I've got him in Standard Perception just to get him a little more accuracy and speed. So total stats we've got here on mine, I've got 230 speed. I could probably glyph that up a little bit higher, but that's fine. I've got just under 6k attack. He's got 40,000 HP, decent amount of defense. A lot of that is just you get some decent mythical base stats here. And in fact, if we go look at this base form versus form 2, you can see that he gets a little squishier in form 2, but his attack goes way up. So we actually get almost 600, 700-ish maybe extra attack moving into form 2. Those are really his only 3 differences. We've got the 100% crit rate. We've got 272 crit damage. Keep in mind, he's going to stack a bunch of additional crit damage here. And in fact, if you look at my accuracy at 399, he's going to get an additional 133 crit damage in his second form. So in his second form, he will have effectively almost 400% crit damage. That's absolutely nuts. And his multipliers are generally really good as well. So you want to stack that attack. Obviously, this accuracy builds into this attack as well. This might as well also be an additional 400 attack that he has as well. So that makes his stats look quite a bit better. So we'll take him into all kinds of fun places. Yeah, you're going to want to build him in ignore defense sets. So your merciless, your instinct, your lethal, your savage. Those are the sets you're kind of looking for. You obviously want accuracy pieces as well. Getting him in Stone Skin would be great if you can also do Stone Skin. Again, I couldn't because my Stone Skin accessories are just really bad, and I felt that it was a bigger priority to get a Nuker in ignore defense than it was to keep him in Stone Skin. So that's why I went with this particular build. As far as masteries are concerned, we've got the offense tree and the support tree, and I really think this is the way to go. I cannot see a situation where you would have defense and support, and the fact that accuracy gives him additional damage and he has debuffs to land mean that this additional accuracy here, this additional accuracy when he has no skills on cooldown, this one here for enemies alive, helps a lot. Lore of Steel is great for the set that I've got him in. It may or may not be the best thing for him, but I think if you're going to get him in Stone Skin, that's extra stats you'll get out of Stone Skin that may be useful, maybe not. Obviously, if you're going to get him in Merciless, these are a bunch of extra stats you get out from there. So Lore of Steel is pretty solid. If you really wanted to, you could certainly go with Evil Eye because he's going to have enough accuracy to be able to do this. Plus, since he's going to be counterattacking with his A1, that might be very disruptive. So Evil Eye actually may be a better overall one if you're not struggling to hit the stats you need to hit. I'm actually getting some bonus crit rate from that mastery, and I need it for the build. So clearly I needed Lore of Steel. And then finally, Master Hexer. Well, all the debuffs he placed are not on the ones that can't be extended because of Master Hexer. So why not? Makes sense. He doesn't have a chance to place anything, so Sniper doesn't make sense, and Spirit Haste doesn't make sense for him because he's more likely to die before some of the supports. Meanwhile, in the offense tree, we went with the extra crit rate. You could certainly go with the extra attack if you've got all the crit rate you need. I like generally just going with this crit rate because otherwise I constantly have to adjust these otherwise, and I'm more likely to need the 5% crit rate than I am to the 75 extra attack. So I find that crit rate's a little more valuable. We went here with Keen Strike. You could certainly argue Heart of Glory. You could argue Grim Resolve because you can do some heart swap as well. You could certainly deal with this shield as well as not too bad. I went with Single Out to do this damage. Life Drinker is not bad, particularly if he's going to be counterattacking a lot because that can help keep him a little bit alive. In Arena, it probably was more helpful in something like Hydra, but I felt that I was going to bring some supports that were going to keep him alive a little better, so that's fine. I expect him to be killing people, so I felt Whirlwind of Death was good to speed him up a little bit. If I'm looking for him to one-shot nuke people, Ruthless Ambush is a good way to go as well. So this might be a little bit better if you're going to use him for some wave clear. We've got Bring It Down, which is increased damage by 6% when attacking targets with a higher max HP. That shouldn't be a problem. We've got Cycle of Violence. This is the reset skill. If he does more than 30% damage, he's a nuker. So this is likely to happen somewhat regularly, so that's good. I don't like Opportunist because debuffs are not really a big deal, but if you have debuff heavy teams, this is a lot of extra damage that's guaranteed, so that can be good. But this is more of an arena focused one, or if you're dealing with waves where you're stunning them regularly, that can be extra damage as well. Wrath of the Slain, if he's going to be around a bunch of dead allies, that could be helpful, but I don't think this is more valuable than either of these three here. Methodical, he's going to be hitting with that A1 quite a bit because of the counterattacking, so might as well stack up some extra damage. Killstreak, might as well stack up some extra damage. Blood Shield, not horrible, but since he doesn't have a lot of max HP, probably not a great one for him. Finally, Stoked Fury, if he is going to be debuffed a lot, that could be helpful, but you generally don't want to be debuffed a lot. So let's not plan on having additional damage. I think these two give you more damage reliably compared to that one. Finally, we went Helm Smasher. Helm Smasher really is the way to go, particularly because he has some ignore defense built into his kit. The more damage you could ignore, the more defense you can ignore, the more damage you can do. It's pretty simple because reducing defense reduces how much damage reduction they get. So let's go take him into some content and take a look and see how cool he is. So I don't have a blessing on my Karnage, but that's because you cannot earn a blessing on Karnage until you actually have pulled him. Cursed City might give you a chance to earn a soul for him. I don't know. I don't recall there being a chance to get a soul, but perhaps there is. It would be kind of nice if there was a way to get a guaranteed soul for him at some point in time because he is a champ you can earn. But regardless, as with any champion, souls will add a huge amount of power to him, so it is definitely worth getting a soul for him at some point in time, especially because even a 2-star soul gives him a huge boost to his attack, and because he's got really good multipliers, that extra attack will make him even better than what we're going to see here when we do the demos. So as far as blessings that would work for him, Intimidating Presence could be very interesting for him. The aura increase will be helpful because he does have a great aura. I generally prefer this on more supporty champions that you're using the aura everywhere for, but it is definitely an option. He is a beast of an aura, so that could be very interesting. Lightning Cage, especially if you put him in Stone Skin, Lightning Cage could prove to be useful. It's not going to add a lot of damage, but it does add a little bit of damage, and it will protect that Stone Skin if you're worried about him losing that Stone Skin. You've got Ward of the Fallen, which is really only good if you get 6 stars, and probably not what you're going to pick if you get a 6-star soul for him. Temporal Chains could be interesting. You get a chance to slow the enemy down. You might speed him up occasionally as well. You've got Life Harvest, which is okay, but again, I prefer that on support champions. Soul Reap is always a favorite of mine because I find that this can be very, very clutch doing this extra damage, especially as a damage dealer. Sometimes you're doing 95%, 96%, so you can get that extra damage there in Soul Reap as well. As far as Chaos is concerned, Sheep is definitely a good one if you're going to be using him in Arena a lot. So as a 6-star, you're definitely going to end up with Sheep, and he is going to have accuracy. So Sheep will make sense even outside of a 6-star for him. Brimstone, not too bad as well if you're doing a little more PvE focused. Because of all his additional counterattacks, however, I think Brimstone could be dangerous on him because you can't always control where the Brimstone is going to go. As far as Harmony is concerned, if you're going to use him with a lot of the debuffs, Nature's Wrath could be interesting. Just keep in mind that he does not place any debuffs in his second form. So if you're using his second form exclusively, this is not going to stack as well as it might otherwise. And then I guess Cracking Roots is an option as well. I really haven't found this to be particularly great, but I haven't had a chance to test it much because I haven't had a champion I've wanted to put in Cracking Roots. But it could be very, very helpful, especially if you can get to this 6-star to inflict 100% on Stone Skin. Yeah, and a Nuker if you're trying to get through Stone Skin if you don't have anybody that's going to knock it off ahead of time. And then finally, Crushing Rend is always an interesting option if you can get to 6-star, especially if you're going to use them for wave clear. That's an additional 20, 30, 40% ignore defense, plus the 35 I've got on him with the sets that I've got in him. Plus you can add more from Helm Smasher, plus you get more from his passive as well. You can get to that 100% ignore defense with that. It'll be great in Hydra. It'll be great for wave clear. So Crushing Rend is also another viable option for him if you get a 6-star. All right, so for a fairly serious arena team here, I've got my Karnage in the lead because he's got the great speed aura. I've got Arby and Siffy because I want to make sure he goes first. I've got Ramonto here to help strip off some Sown skins if we can help. He'll also do some block passive or block active skills, which I think could be very helpful, especially because he has a chance to spread some of those debuffs, even if that's not the debuff he's landing. So we'll go in here manually and take a look at this. I also think that this is a fun team here because I believe with his block passive and block active skills, he's got a chance to kill the Monkey King and not have him automatically revive. So my Siffy's pretty fast. We get the additional increase attack as well, which will definitely help him out. Ramonto will lock a bunch of people out, so that is great. And so we're going to go in here with his, who do we want to, you know what, let us just do the wave clear. Let's do the easy clear. So traditionally, if you just want to clear everybody out, We're going to hit here with the A3. We're only going to get an additional 10% ignore defense here, but Sify and RB tend to be tanky. We're not going to get much of it because she's going to counteract that a little bit, but he has the right affinity to hit through her as well. And look at that. We only got Sify, and we got the Monkey King as well. Monkey King had block passives, though, so he's not going to auto-revive. So I can now sleep Arbiter, which is great. We'll get extra turn meter back. And yes, we did die here. That's fine. That's why we have some supports here to bring him back. Let's get you knocked down. So she got her revive, but that's fine because I think Karnage is still due to go next. So we'll do his A2, which still hits very, very hard. And see, we're killing a lot of folks here, not managing to kill these two. This is a pretty tanky team, which is fine. Can lock out Harima. Unfortunately, he didn't get block revived. He had this passive revived, so he still got the revive for that there. See, there's that counterattack that he does. So that is great. Let's see if we can kill Sify. That is awesome. And from here, we've got it made. So let's lock you out if we can. Did not manage to lock you out. Interesting. And there we go. Clean sweep. Definitely not the easiest team here, but Karnage did an awful lot of damage. So let's see if we can find a team here to use his A1 on and give that a try. All right, we're going to see if we can give this a try. We are going to try to lock out the Tormen, and hopefully we go fast enough that I can then use Sify to sleep the Armands or strip him of whatever we need to strip. So let's give this a try and see how this works. All right, so Armands is in stone skin, so we are going to have to just go as fast as possible. See if we can strip you of everything. That is great. So we're going to go his A3 here, which if we hit him right, it should block Tormen from reviving. And actually, no, let's get the reviver and see how that works. See, he did enough damage to hit the reviver even through the shield and got a bunch of his other stuff to lock everybody out. So he locked every passive skills and active skills, and because he hit him and killed him, he spread it irresistibly, which locked out the Armands. So he gives you a lot of interesting other alternatives. So we'll just sleep, but we've got some pretty heavy resistance here too, because Mithrala's got all the high resistance as well. So let's bring your turn meter back up. So you got, that got on cooldown as well. Interesting. So we will change you. And now we've got a bunch of extra debuffs on a couple of tanky champions. So let's see what we can kill. There we go. So he hits pretty hard. He brings you a lot of interesting lockout situations because if you can kill one champion with that A3, you've got a chance to lock everybody else's active skills out as well, which I think could be very, very good. Now you do have to make sure you don't have a stone skin up or block debuffs, but it can't be resisted if he's killing somebody with that A3. Makes him definitely kind of fun, kind of interesting. He could be counter for the Monkey King. He could be a way to get around UDK, especially because it's a triple hitter. So the first hit won't get around UDK, but the second and third hits will. So could be very interesting to use in Arena there as well. Overall, I'm finding him a kind of a fun nuker. He does definitely require a little bit of a manual handling because sometimes you want AoE and sometimes you don't. But if you want to clear them for their speed clear, you can certainly use them mostly on AoE. And if you want to use them for that single target lockout, you can certainly use them in his first form. Both forms are very viable in Arena, and I think that makes a pretty fun champion. So let's go take a look at dungeons and see if I can use him as wave clear overseer. All right, so we're going to take him here in Ice Golem, and I don't need to explain the team here other than Artek is the solo champion for this. So I've got him metamorphing as soon as possible, not metamorphing back, and he's going to do his A3, which is the big AoE nuke that heals him and blocks revive. We're going to then go round 2, same setup there, other than I haven't prioritized metamorph. We should definitely do that, just in case for some reason he transforms back. And then round 3, I have him change back into his first form, and then lock everything but his A1 up, because for the most part, Artek is supposed to solo him, so he shouldn't be attacking too often, because he will slow down the run a little bit. So we'll get that running. We're on Ice Golem 10. Let's take a look and see how he does against the waves. I've actually not tested this out, so this will be a new chance for me, but we get a bunch of debuffs over there. And here he goes, and not too bad. Didn't actually kill everybody, but he did an awful lot of damage, and we've got this under control. So maybe as I've got him built, he's certainly not the best wave clear from an endgame perspective, but we're comparing him to Seer, and look at that. Second round, he just managed to kill everybody. So the extra damage he gained from killing folks was just enough. Actually, let's just go hop into Hydra, because we don't need to see the rest of this. So this is my hard Hydra team. I've run this with Thor. I've run this with Cupidus. Generally, it runs best with Thor, and with Thor, I get about 280 to 300 million damage in Clan Boss overall. It's a very good team. It will usually run to the end. The way I've got Karnage set up, I've got Karnage set up to flip into his second form and basically stay there. He should get a bunch of extra counterattacks, which will be kind of fun. He'll have his, hopefully his A3 will reset on occasion with some of the Merciless gear we've got, and he should prioritize his A3 and then his A2 to do a bunch of damage. And we've got enough extra debuffs that we should be putting some extra debuffs in there, giving him an extra 40, 50, 60% ignore defense, which will make him absolutely smack against the Hydra. So let's go run this team and see how well it works. So I'll hide myself on camera so you can see how much damage everybody did here. But, you know, it is not the 280 to 300 million damage that I have done with other teams. So Karnage is a good damage dealer. This is clearly a pretty solid team. He is not outdamaging my Thor in a very similar team. He is not outdamaging my Cupidus in a very similar team. To be somewhat fair to him, I have a 5-star soul for Thor, and I have a 3-star soul for Cupidus. If I were to have at least a 2-star soul for Karnage, his attack would go up by almost 1,000, which with his multipliers would do a lot more, and I think would free champions a little bit easier, which would get me, again, to a very similar result. But overall, I'm actually not disappointed with this. He is a very good damage-dealing option, and depending on your team and how it's constructed, he may work better in your team than a Thor. He may not work as good as a Thor, but he is clearly in the same category as far as damage dealers for Hydra. Whether or not you'll need him by the time you get him, I don't know, but he's a good damage dealer. He's a good wave clearer. He's good in arena. He's very useful. He's not top tier absolute meta in any particular location, but I think he brings a lot of value to accounts, and he's actually just kind of fun to use as well. So I think he's a pretty good champion. I think that for those of you that may have slightly lesser accounts, when you get him, you are going to definitely feel his impact. And I think once he gets a soul, he'll be significantly easier to work with, and the souls will help him quite a bit. So hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you guys got a chance to experience the full Karnage experience, as it were. Appreciate you guys hanging around. If you get a chance to like the video and hit that subscribe button, smash that button. I definitely appreciate it. You guys are awesome. I do this for you, and I love giving back to you guys, and I love when you guys hang out with me and watch my videos, comments, and all that fun stuff. So let me know how far away you are from Karnage, or if you've got him already and what you think about him. And until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.